Hi there and welcome to the second part of the tutorial on making a spider. Now we've worked through the modelling part and we've made a fairly simple spider. We've got a couple of modifiers on there just now, and we're going to work now on not the next tab on, so sculpting we're going to avoid because we're keeping this low polygon, and we're just going to go straight to the UV editing. Now for those of you that don't know, UV editing is taking the texture and creating the colour over this object and finding a space on a flat image. It's a fairly complex process, but we're going to try and explain this as best I possibly can. So I'm going to turn this back to global, and we're in, as you can see, we're now in the UV editing. If I go into edit mode, so you can hit the tab key or you can do the drop down here into edit mode, and you can select A for all, and you can see that the default UV layout, what it's done is it's tried to get all of these faces and it's tried to splat them flat onto this one texture space. Now the reason that it doesn't look anything like the spider is because it hasn't actually included all of the extra stuff that we put in. It only included the original sphere that we made. So I'm going to show you a couple of methods, and we're going to see if we can make this look a little bit better, get this texture space right. So if you click on the UV up the top right hand side of the UV editing tab, you'll see that there's a bunch of options here. Now the quickest and easiest method is not always the best, but it does work if you just want a nice quick way of doing it. If you click on Smart UV Project and just leave these values as default and click OK, and what you'll see on the left hand side here is that it's tried its best to guess where to keep things together and where to separate things into different parts. So you can kind of see the shape of a leg here, and you can kind of see the top part and a little bit, and this works fine, but where there are seams visible, you may get stretch. So for example, if you try to paint all the way around the side of the leg, which this looks like, the top of the leg will be in a different part somewhere on the texture space, so you would have a visible seam. Often, if you're going to do just hand painting, this is usually good enough, but for this video I want to show you a couple of different ways. I want to show you a slightly better way to get a better result. So we're just going to go into this and try and go as quick as we can. So what we try and do with UV editing is we're going to use the standard UV Unwrap, but in order for that to happen we need to mark seams in the edges that we think are best for this model. And this is really a trial and error kind of thing for this, for UV editing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over it and try and see how we get on. So if I click on Edge Select Mode, what I'm going to do is just go to the Spanner tab here, and for now I'm just going to untick the real-time display for the editor for the subdivision surface, so that I can see just the edges and I'm not confused with the subdivision underneath. So what I need to do is just look at where the seams should be for this object, and what I'm going to do is just maybe mark seams around the outside of each of the legs and just see how that goes. So if I'm holding Shift and left clicking on all of the edges that go around the outside of these legs, and just working my way around, and the ones, not that one, the one in the middle, so I think that one and this one. So in theory I've got all of those edges selected all the way around for each of them. I can just about see that, and then I can right click and then choose Mark Seam. If we were to unwrap this now, we click tap A to select everything, click UV and click Unwrap, you'll see that it does its best to separate by seams and keep everything else together. So it's done a pretty bad job. It's not using up nearly all the texture space, and I'll need to keep going with some more seams. So all I'm going to do is just try and think where else I need a seam. So what I'm going to do for this this seam that runs all the way down the inside of this leg, if you hold Alt and you click, you'll get a loop of edges. So I Alt clicked for that one, and then we're going to right click and mark that seam. I'm going to do the same for this one. So this is Alt click, right click, mark seam, Alt click, right click, mark seam, and then this one Alt click, right click, mark seam. And what that hopefully will do is do a better job of unwrapping the legs. So once again, A for all, click on UV and choose unwrap. Now you can see here it's it's kept the legs kind of together, and it's folded them out so that they take up one texture space. It's left this part, which I'm assuming is the eyes here and the hemisphere of this spider. It's kind of left that in a bit of a funny way, so maybe I should look at a better way of getting this one. So maybe I'll mark these two so that we have a line that runs all the way around. I'll mark this one too. Just again, we right click, mark seam, select A for all, UV and unwrap, and this looks like it's the top part, and this looks like it's the bottom part, and there's this funny bit here with that must be the fang here. So let's see if we can find a good way to unwrap the fang. So maybe if I just do Alt and click on this inner edge, and maybe right click and mark the seam, and then let's see what that looks like when I unwrap. So unwrap, so it looks like the fang's been unwrapped to this one, and it seems joined up to the bottom half here. So maybe if I can mark a couple more, let's have a look. Actually, I'm not too unhappy with that. Maybe if I was to go around, separate this from the bottom half. So maybe if I go this one and this one, and right click, mark seam, A for all, UV and unwrap. Alright, so let's put the fang on this one, and this looks like the top one. Yep, that's a pretty good job. So this is the basics of UV unwrapping. The other thing that you can do is, once it's done, I'm going to make sure that I've saved this model. So I'm going to click File and Save. Mine's is already saved, Spider version 2_1, so just make sure you save it in a folder. What you can do with the UV space is you can actually adjust this yourself. So you can select a particular vertex, and if you press L, you get the linked vertices, and you can press R to rotate, G to grab, and S to scale. And what you want to do is probably just, if you see that it's done a fairly good job, what you can probably do is just adjust these a little bit to get the texture space that you want. So you don't want wasted space anywhere. So I could rotate this one around, move it across a bit, and then possibly do the same with this one. Press L, move it across just a touch, and just move it into a bit more of a space so that they're more spread out. I think I want to make this one slightly bigger because this is going to be the top, so I'm going to turn this around, move it, and then scale it up just a touch, maybe a bit more, move it into this space, and S for scale. Alright, so L for length, G to grab. So just by moving these around a little bit, that allows you to just be a bit more efficient with the amount of space that you're using. So I use that one, L. Just rotate that a touch. Alright, so if you're fairly happy with it, we can leave it at that. I'm going to finish this video now, and in the next one we'll look at texture painting. So that we've just covered a little bit of UV unwrapping using the UV, just a standard smart UV project, and we've also added in some seams and tried to get a bit more of a control over where things go and where the seams are in your model, so that when you do want to texture paint and add texture to it, you don't get visible artifacts as the textures cross across from one island to the next. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll do the next one, we'll look at texture painting.